Oh gosh.
Well, thank you very much, Susan, for what you're doing. I know what it is for an artist to get back that early, because my day usually starts at 11.
Coffee, a lot of coffee.
Veronica, I don't know. I think it was your like, come. I'm like, okay.
Good. Yeah, because we missed you at the previous one. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we will start slowly. I already am recording, and I will start the live stream to our Facebook so that if somebody cannot join, they can watch it later. Okay. And then we'll start. Okay, so the guys, hello, now the two of you. Ludek and Pavla. Great. Oh, no, just Ludek. Okay. So hello again to everyone. Congratulations on Independence Day of America. And we decided to talk about, to celebrate, the Independence Day of the United States, and Independence Day of Ukraine is coming soon, and talk about American theater, because American theater, well, has a big scene and has a great influence on other theaters. So we'll talk about playwrights, we'll talk about acting. American acting, is there American acting or not? And I guess as there are 6 of us, for more interconnections and more personal communication, we will split into like smaller breakout rooms of 3, so that you have a chance to connect more and exchange your views with the people from different countries, because we don't only have Americans here, we have Czech Republic and Ukraine as well. And I guess some other guys wanted to join, like registered, from our Jerry from Nigeria. Oh, he can find the link. So yeah, we will spread and then come back and discuss some insights on that matter, on the questions. Okay. So
and what is the question?
What is the first question? I always have my little presentations, so I came prepared. So the first question will be about the playwrights. So who do you think is the most prominent American playwright? We have several options, but you don't have to stick to these options. And have you worked with the text of these authors or the other American playwrights? Why and why not? Would you like to stage some of the works by these playwrights? And yeah. So
do you know these guys on the list?
Yes.
Yeah, sounds like that.
Yes. So the discussion about about the American playwrights. So I guess. Let me. Yes. So I guess we will have one breakout room of 3, and 2 people will stay with me. Okay. So. Okay. Oh, and Jerry is here. Jerry, hi.
Hi, Jerry. Hi, man.
Hi. So now you can join your breakout room. the guys who are in the breakout room, and Jerry and Kelly, you yeah, you will be guys with me. So Kelly, what can you say? What can you say about this topic, about the American playwrights and their work?
The thing that jumps out at me, I can't help it, I'm sorry, is that they're white guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, of course, I've done work with all of them, whether I was in college or have had to read the plays because they were the theatrical canon or whatever. I've done a lot with Mamet because he's from Oklahoma. That's where I am currently. So everybody wants to do a Mamet play. I think that they're all fine. I think that in the seasons of the theater company that I work with, the World Stage Theater Company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is we have not staged any of these productions in the last 6 years in. We have not staged these shows, due in large part like there's so many playwrights that are out there telling some really amazing stories that have not been done as much, have not been seen as much. There are women out there writing some amazing things. There are people from different cultures and communities. As a matter of fact, we're about to audition next week for Lloyd Suh's production of The Chinese Lady. So I just think that there are lots out there, and right now, if I'm not mistaken, Lauren Gunderson is American. Is she American or is she Canadian? I think she's American, but
have I spelled it right? I like made a message.
No, that's absolutely right. That's perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now, I think that if she is not the most produced playwright, she's the second most produced playwright. And she's written some things that explore, so many different experiences, from historical pieces like The Revolutionists in France, or The Silent Sky, where she's exploring, a woman who was an astronomer, to things like I and You, where she's exploring young people. I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question about these particular playwrights.
Yeah, but that's the thing that, like when you Google American playwrights, that's what comes, in the Google search. And for example, as a non-American, non-American person, I would love to learn more about, the playwrights more, out of these pictures. So that's why we are having this discussion, not to talk about these guys, but to talk about bigger picture.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, again, their works are fantastic. I think that, many of them have stood the test of time. I think that that's why we're still talking about them. And I think that there's an opportunity to, explore so many others. But yeah, I'll leave it at that so that I don't become a commercial for Lauren Anderson.
Diana, what can you say? What can you add? Do you work with playwrights, with the plays, or do you write your original work? Like
I write from lived experience, and so I write original work. And with these playwrights, of course, they're upheld as the ones to study. We read them through high school and college, and they're heavily produced. But again, they are all white men written in the 50s or before. So we're now in 2023, and I just think that there's really exciting work coming out that is either written from lived experience or from different cultures and different pieces of America. America is not just one blanket, Americana that we see in some of these works. So I as a playwright, I'm really excited to hear about Lauren Gunderson, that for me opens up like ideas that, oh wow, I can write too. And I think that's really the spirit of America too, is that you can become anything. So even in playwriting, we can tell stories that aren't often told. And that is what is most exciting for me as an artist and as an art consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jerry, what about you?
For me, I haven't worked that much with American text, except for Arthur Miller, which is also not a major production as it were. And but you know, if I would stick to Arthur Miller, I mean, it is the social commentary aspect of his text that is exciting to me. And maybe given the kind of society or the situation around here in Africa or in Nigeria, where there are a whole lot of issues to engage. And if you check the narrative of our theater, for instance, we talked about ourselves as a social, theater, because the whole idea of entertainment is not what drives what we do, but the possibilities, to contributing to molding a society. And so that's where I see, Arthur Miller here. I know there are loads and loads and loads of other playwrights, but for me, it would be one. Especially, I think I read his, which was what I was supposed to work on. It was not a major production, it was a staged reading. His adaptation of Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, I think. Yeah. His own adaptation of An Enemy of the People by Henrik Ibsen. So largely, his text resonates with the audience. I mean, he's not elitist in any way. It resonates with the audience, and it have, very profound insight and complexity of our experiences as human. And I think that one day I should prioritize, staging one of Arthur Miller's play, or maybe some other contemporary writer of this generation. That would be my take for that.
Thank you. Sarah,
Yeah.
Hi, good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning for you. Well, good evening for Ukraine.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you could make it. We're talking about American playwrights.
Yay.
And yes, American plays. So could you tell about the work of your theater, Asylum Theatre? Do you work with, what text do you work with? What American texts do you work with? Playwrights, because we talked about how, like there is so much more to American theater than American playwriting than that.
Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. Hello. It always brings me such joy to think of you all. Well, first of all, I have to say I see Tennessee Williams and I get excited because he is a personal favorite of the American playwrights others have heard of before. I actually had the honor of directing the UK premiere of his play, The Chalky White Substance, which was discovered after his death. It's a short two-person play, unlike any other play of his I've ever encountered. Because do you know it, anyone? Have you encountered this play? It's a wonderful piece. It's post-apocalyptic.
I'd love to know it.
Yes,
the chalky face of
the chalky white substance.
Oh.
It takes place in a get this is Tennessee Williams now. Post-apocalyptic part of the world. For 400 years after what he imagines might have been a nuclear war. And it's a world, what's survived. So it's a desolate, dusty, dry landscape with hardly any water. Sounds an awful lot like Nevada, where I live. But and it's about a place where the women are dying and there's almost no women because they've succumbed to it's called the chalky white substance, but it's sort of the white dust in the air. And in America, we have a famous period of time in our 1930s called the Dust Bowl, where there was an agricultural disaster where there was no water and there was only wind, and it destroyed our farmland. So it caused great migration from the middle of the country to the coasts, and a lot of economic anger and stuff. And so the play reminded me of his experiences in those times, might have conjured some of the atmosphere, but the story is like nothing nostalgic. And it's just and he wrote it a couple of years after, or a year or so after his mother died, and a couple of years before he died. And so there's so many reasons why when you read the play at first, you can't believe it's Tennessee Williams, but then when you realize it's Tennessee Williams, it makes complete sense when you realize when he wrote it and you think about his relationship to women. So anyway, it's a wonderful 10-15 minute play. And if you haven't read it, you can find it in anthologies. It was found in like 1996, I think. So anyway, that's my favorite Tennessee Williams play. Jerry, you familiar with it? Do you know? Yeah. So I love that show. As far as American playwrights, we're used to these guys, but the first thing we notice is that they're men. And it's so funny. I didn't think of myself as a feminist growing up because I grew up in a very conservative parents, so that was a bad word. And you see here, I'm here with my Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Michelle Obama. So I was the problem child who disagreed with that. So my work has been primarily in the contemporary theater of not famous playwrights on purpose. And because to me, the why of my theater is tied to the same why of our independence, actually. Not that we've ever realized it or achieved it for all people, but that some people decided to take the decision to that what's good for others will be good for me, and vice versa. And they took that idea seriously to the point where they wrote a constitution trying to set up the rules that way for life, even though they weren't, of the times, and there were so many problems with it. But that they took the drastic step of doing which so many others are doing around the world now in a way that Americans don't do enough of, which is what you're doing in Ukraine and all these other places where everyone lives, which is really fighting for that, not hypocritically, but with all they have. And that's why I do theater in America, because for people who don't have anything in America, it's still the best way for them to find a way to get out and show who they are, because freedom isn't something that everyone feels, no matter what your constitution says, right? And so in America, the asylum's been around for 25 years, and it was founded originally by the master's playwriting program that used to exist at the university here. Now they got rid of that to put film in instead, screen acting, But it was founded by the wife of the head of that program, because she herself had been a very successful actress in New York and back in the Eastern Coast. And she came here, and she had a lot of friends who were playwrights from Chicago and New York, and they were afraid to show their work in New York for fear it would get destroyed before it had a chance to get developed. So Chicago Dramatists, which is a major literary organization here, we had a partnership with us, and we would bring Chicago playwrights that work out here, and they would try it out here in the secrecy of the desert before the New York critics could get their hands on it. And so we would we'd done over 75 contemporary American playwrights over the last 25 years, either developmental readings, premieres of their work. We're a semi-professional company, meaning people are always paid, but they're not paid the union amount. You can't pay your mortgage and feed your children on what we pay, but we've always paid something. Because in Las Vegas, where I live, we are an entertainment capital, which means we are an art desert, as far as the policymakers think only in terms of tourism, and they don't appreciate cultural tourism isn't just, the entertainment of a strip. It's the work we're doing. Gigi's right now about to open our show, our West production in London, and And today, we're
Yeah,
declaring our American
right.
independence by going back to England. I guess. Rubbing it in their face. I don't know. But the relationship that the asylum has had for these 25 years started out locally respecting the voices in our community, and also then telling the rest of America, you're our community too. And this is what I find so interesting and inspiring about Pro-English and West, because it seems to have a sort of like we're like, what do they call it? We call it kissing cousins here in America, when you're not quite related, but you're there are so many similarities you seem like you could be, because of how you've grown your own voice and your own ability to help others just from where you're at, and insisting on finding ways. And that's how the asylum has always sort of been. And so we've never gotten big because we wanted to be small enough to be nimble. We've been able to survive for 25 years in a country that is hostile to art for the people instead of art for the profit, because we've been able to put the work first. And a lot of the regional theaters in America right now are failing, as in they have the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which is in northern Northwest, Center Theater Group, which is the major theater center down in Los Angeles, a couple of Looking Glass Theater in Chicago, which is a major regional theater in Chicago. They have all announced closures, season suspensions, massive reductions in production. And this is all a continued fallout from the pandemic, mixed with culture wars, mixed with inflation from all the things we're all suffering around the world. And so these major companies are losing their minds because they don't know what to do, because they're so used to I call it the theatrical industrial complex, the big theater, big money. And they kind of don't know what to do. And I find that a little, as a company that has always been here and has actually helped plays make it from our states to those big theaters, I have to say that we don't have an identity crisis at the asylum. Because we've always done this work, whether we had that kind of support or not. And we find a way for our theater to travel farther than we can. And
Which
so,
is the UK.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
My own beginnings in American theater were in international theater, other than when I was a child in high school. But in college, when I first started directing, my mentor he was from the Philippines. He migrated to America after World War II. And his training was all in Japan and Asian theater. And he was my first directing master. So my first experiences were in experimental and Asian theater tradition. And then the projects we worked on, I assisted him on a translation of a new version of Antigone by a Greek woman that changed the ending because she had different things to say about politics in Greece. This is back in like the late 80s, early 90s. Then the next thing we did is we did a play about Maria Quisling, and the Quislings and Nazis in Norway. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my life has always been this sort of weird, an American who believes that the theater is in the world. And so the theater is always, most of the theater I've tried to do here has been a mix of Americans writing American theater, but I wanted Americans to understand that American theater is world theater, because when we acknowledge who we are and we acknowledge the diversity of who we are, we should be bothered by how many other voices we don't see the art of, because we see those people everywhere on our soil. And so for me, I love it when women playwrights become well known. That's hard to do in this country, but I do have to say, as far as women theater makers go, most of the theaters are run in this country by women, but they're not big. They're all like the asylum size. but you know, they don't usually get the promotions to the big theaters. But because it just happens to be the case that we're the caretakers in a lot of things in America that goes unnoticed. Even with our famous celebrities, they're literally like the thing that other people like to point to pretend that women's issues aren't still an issue. And we are facing a lot of issues with rights being lost and stuff like that. And I think that what I love about the Asylum is that we've always shown that you don't make theater when it's comfortable. You make theater precisely because everything is uncomfortable for people who are ignored, and this is their way to make a change. And so I don't worry as much as other theater companies do in this country about the financial issues, because no one's ever really helped us. So you know how it is when you're poor. Rich people have their money, they lose their money, it doesn't affect you. They're still that rich. But our work goes. So anyway, that's the Asylum.
Yeah, thank you. Diana, you wanted to say something.
Yes. I did want to say too that yes, so like I agree so much with what you're saying. Thank you for that. And I think with these playwrights too, and bigger theaters, as an independent artist, it is often not sustainable. It is hard. It's financially difficult to get your work out there. So, and I've found that it's difficult to even get your work seen by people that are willing to approach more topics that are that people are going through currently. It's a little more palatable for big theaters to produce these, you know, the established playwrights. That's what I've seen. And I've also seen that it's not always sustainable. There's not a lot of arts funding in the United States, I've found. So there are different hurdles that current playwrights face as they're trying to get their work out. And I'm saying that as a person that it does have you know, more connections than like I'm saying that from a place of privilege, really, which is a major topic in America right now too. I'll say that, and then I also wanted to bring up very quickly on the other side of the spectrum, something really fun with these playwrights is that we often in improv will do improv based on Tennessee Williams or improv based in the style of Mamet. So it's really fun to see how these playwrights do take you know, snapshots of the human existence and how we can deconstruct that and use it in a different way too. So that's really how I love doing improv in the style of Tennessee Williams or Mamet and seeing what will ensue.
Thank you. Kelly, you wanted to say something. You wanted to add something.
Oh, why don't I know how to take myself off mute after 25 years of the pandemic, right? So first I want to say, Sarah, everything you said, yes, to the power. I agree wholeheartedly with so much of what you stated. I also just wanted to add that one of the reasons why our company started, World Stage Theater Company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is because of the fact that we wanted to tell those what we refer to as undertold stories, right? We wanted to tell the stories from the margins, because the theater that makes money in Oklahoma are the big musicals. Everybody wants to come to be entertained. Well, we like to edutain the people, right? Educate them and entertain them at the same time. We want to give them a production that they were not familiar with, and tell them a story about a people or a community that they were not familiar with, and then engage them in talkbacks. After our productions, we do matinee talkbacks, and everybody, when we started, was like, nobody stays for the talkbacks. Everybody just walks out. Well, it turns out our matinee performances, the word has gotten out because they are the best selling performances that we do, because people want to stay for the talkbacks, including the ushers. So, you know, we're lucky in that way that people want to talk about the stories that we're telling. And we like to say that we want to hold up the mirror to every person who comes to our show and say, are you who you think you are? Right. And so we engaged them in stories from literally all over the world. One of our best productions was I Have Before Me, a remarkable document given to me by a young lady from Rwanda. And that is the title. And it's from an English playwright. And she was basically writing on her story of working with refugee populations in the UK from Rwanda shortly after the massacre. And so, or the genocide. And so and people were not familiar with it, surprisingly. I mean, I was like, how could you not know about the genocide? But there are people who exist that did not know about it. And it was a play that was very painful, but it was also incredibly funny because it had to be, otherwise it would just be really, really heavy. But I think that we've done stories from, to your point, Sarah, about having the international type of theater. We've brought international artists in. We're bringing some international artists from the UK in the fall. We've had a director come from Chile to direct and work with one of our productions in our season. So our mission is to give actors and audiences access to the world by telling multicultural, inspirational, and transformational stories to connect our hearts and minds with people, places, and ideas. So everything that we do is to try to connect people with different experiences, for us to remember that we belong to each other, to realize that the shortest distance between two strangers is a story, all of that stuff. And we feel that there is no more powerful resource than theater. So yeah, all that and then some.
Thank you. Jerry, you were saying, and while you were saying, I think I might call back the guys and we move to the next question.
Okay, that's great. I just like to say that it's exciting, the kind of experience, that Sarah and then now Kelly, shared about how they work in America. And, a lot of time we sit back here and I feel like, oh, are we doing the right thing? But hearing this kind of experiences, just suggests that, yes, we are not doing, any badly, especially when you talk about talkbacks. I remember someone spoke with me the other time and he said, no, that your production don't have this wow experience. Somebody was looking for entertainment, pure entertainment. And for our choice of approach, we decided we want to do, we want to connect with the audience. I prefer, as much as we want to talk about resources and revenue, I prefer such, smaller kind of engagements where you have talkbacks after and we do that every now and then. There is none of our, production that we don't have talkbacks. And I have come to realize that, like you said, people seem to want that more. Why one or two persons will finish seeing the show and they will walk away, some even before it ended, a lot more want to stay back, want to engage with the artists, want to, to engage with the story, want to engage with the experiences, and someone will climb and say, look, this is my story. And I think that, counts a lot. And so I just want to say, thank you for sharing this experience. My experience of American theater is not that very, huge, but I am happy that you share this experience, and it reinforces that the fact that we are not doing badly over here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back.
I'm putting down all the names that we discussed. And
yes,
it was interesting discussion. Lots of things to read and to look at.
Exactly. Thank you. Oh, okay. So the next question that we wanted to discuss with you is how, well, for non-American members, how do you view American theater? So what is American theater for you? And for American theater makers, how do you think the world views American theater? Because when you think of American theater, you think about Broadway, yeah, but there is more to life. There is more to theater than Broadway.
Is there? That's what I think. I still think it's all Broadway. I don't know what Diana and Susan, you guys, what are you doing here? You're not doing musicals, do you?
I do musicals. I'll direct you to the bathroom if you pay me enough. No, just kidding.
Okay.
I just want to say I would love to be on Broadway. So, but no, I don't do musicals.
I get okay.
We produced everything. I produced everything, every kind of play. I've done Greek plays with hand sock puppets. I've done musical melodramas. We just did a developmental workshop of another musical about Jack the Ripper, Jack the Ripper.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
one of the things about the Asylum is that our service is to the art form. And that means that if the art form serves the audience, but we believe in the functional responsibility of theaters to each other and theater artists to each other to create the infrastructure, as you are with ProEnglish and with Wes, understanding that we are living beings and our trees want to grow, our roots need to spread. I keep thinking about how trees, they say that they believe that trees all around the world can actually talk to each other. There's like these systems and science are discovering where there's like a connection. And I sort of feels like there's a model in my head of how theaters are like that, right?
Wait, Sarah, are you the AD of the Vegas?
Oh yeah, the Asylum Theatre, that's me.
Okay, hi, I'm Susan.
Hi.
I'm the one in California.
Hi.
I emailed you.
Yes, but so what that means is, because in America the problem is that playwrights struggle, as Diana was saying earlier in our conversation. We believe that the Asylum existed before me. I came along about 5 or 6 years after it was founded. That's when I moved to Las Vegas.
Oh, really? I thought
Yeah,
that you were running it from the very beginning. Okay.
No, it was founded by this an actress who was associated with people at the Masters of Playwriting program that used to be here. And then I came and she asked me to take it over. So I've had it for the last 20 years. And the thing is that everyone all over the world who wants to put on plays will put on a play. But we want our work to advance the ball, not just for the audience and the public as a piece of art that can help, but we want our work to always be advancing the ability of theater to exist. And that means that the playwrights need to know their stories can get told somewhere. And that we think that that for us is the most important, rewarding, useful thing you can do in the middle of the Mojave Desert, when you have an entertainment capital right next to you, is you take advantage of what can be the neglect. We always look for the other side of the coin, which I think you see every day in Ukraine, right? Everything is like, oh, that sucks. What can I do with it to make life better?
Yeah.
Theater. And so that means that we will do any kind of story that we feel we can serve it, that our company doing that play isn't a setback for that play. There have been times when I've received a proposal for a show that is not right for our theater, but I will take it to another artistic director in another part of the country and advocate for it, because I know it's right for their space. Because what we're trying to do is forge missing links in the chain between artists and the people. And so that means that's why we put so much energy into reaching out and seeing who's feeling disconnected in the theater world from the theater world, and trying to make a connection, so that belonging is something we can create among each other as theater artists first. Because in America, we're so marginalized, but it's because we do it to ourselves, right? There's so much elitism, there's so much, people compete, right? Because this is performing arts. So you have to vie for every opportunity. And how can you create an atmosphere where you are both in ensemble and supporting each other, but understanding that sometimes people both want the same part or project, and yet you can still be collegial and work together. And so I guess the Asylum just understands that it's in a desert, and we don't fight it. We don't have a Napoleon complex about it. We don't apologize for it. We know that we're pioneers just by being here in a difficult physical situation, just like all of you are. If you're all of us are here in part because we know that the struggle is real. we just realized, well, no matter how rich or poor we are as a company, no one can stop us from saying we're an oasis for playwrights. So, you know, I did a play once a couple of years ago called The Bougie Willie Bee, and it was this ridiculous comedy, but it was about something really relevant. And it was about a middle-aged man who has money and he's got a midlife crisis. And so he finds a little group of artists who realize he's got money, and they just start making up bullshit projects because they can get money out of him. And it's all about pretentiousness and American, you know, consumerism. And it was this hilarious play, but no one would produce it. An award-winning playwright who wrote for NBC television couldn't get one to produce it because it had 15 characters in the cast.
Oh.
And in America, and it wasn't a musical. Nobody puts on a comedy, right? And so in the Asylum, we were like, we can do that, you know. And more than once, we've taken a play that should have been, that was award-winning, but no one would produce, either because it was about subjects where the audience, like if their audience is Islamophobic, but a fantastic Muslim play, you know, that kind of thing. And we're like, well, you know, what are you going to do to us in the Mojave Desert? You can't touch us. It's not going to ruin our lives if you don't like it. So we do it anyway. And so I think that that's the best thing I can say about American theater for the American theater makers who are here. If you're an American making theater anywhere in the regions, then you are doing it for reasons that are not about fame or fortune. You're doing it because you just have to. No one's making it easy, and yet here you are doing it. And the Asylum Theatre just wants to be a beacon for people who are like that. And what happens is, if we insist on working really hard on doing serious work, if we take that work seriously, then people who used to think that people take a second look at the playwrights, and they give them new chances. So there's been a few times where our opportunities have led to, if we can get a producer here from another place, like often San Francisco or LA, a lot of our shows at least get another life in another city. And we feel that's success. If we can get a playwright's staged reading to a production, an unproduced play to a publication, or someone who had the door slammed in their face, a feeling of belonging as a theater artist, then that's the Asylum kind of wants to walk the talk of its name. And that's, so that's a really long-winded, I apologize, way of saying that I will do musicals. I will do it if the show is something we can stage and it won't suffer because of our resources, then we don't care what type of play we do. We want the audience to understand that theater is all kinds of things. And also the other thing I'll just say about Broadway, and you can use this in other countries where you have a big city and little city issue. Remind everyone to look in the bios of a Broadway playbill and read every state in the union those artists actually hail from. Because it's all of the regions that make the artists of grit from every region find their way there, but it's not because that's where the grit is born. So Broadway is American theater. If you read the bios, you see the American theater artists beyond the producer's package. And then you as international artists can really learn where these people go to school, where they really work, what kind of companies, you know, like you think about all the people who lived in Oklahoma who are on Broadway, who don't give enough credit to Oklahoma theater for making them, you know, and that kind of thing. And so I like to do that, is remind people, well, yeah, you might be in London, but you were from, you know, Leeds, you know, whatever.
You came from Mojave Desert.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and something that you said well, I wanted to share this thing after what you said about taking every opportunity, not turning every material down, and give it a chance to shine, because that's what we did with ProEnglish Theatre as well. As long as this big war started, we saw ourselves as the theater who would connect international theater initiatives with Ukrainian, and we would say, okay, there is a Ukrainian playwright who writes a play, we'll find a producer or theater in US or in Australia who would stage it, and we did. Or there is an international playwright who writes about what's happening, and we'll find a means to stage it in Ukraine, and so on. And we really started doing all of this. We never said no to anyone. But then, guys, you know what happened? They started sending me Putin plays from all over the world. There is a playwright once a week who says, ooh, I write a play about Putin. You should read it. It's my reminiscence about the war. It's my thoughts about the war and so on. And every week I receive at least one, and they all ask me to read it. And all of them are really, really bad. So I'm like, oh my God, please stop sending me Putin plays and so on. So eventually I found this way and this power to say no. Like if the guy just sent me, I wrote a play about Putin, I'm like, no, I'm not even going to read it. Well, this guy doesn't deserve any plays. Just like, just that. So eventually from being this, from giving opportunity to each and everyone, I had to trim my resources because they are still very limited, and select and choose only the best things that we want to produce on stage. That's just wanted to share with you guys. And I have questions to especially American theater makers here. In Ukraine, we have a big division between what we call professional theater and amateur theater. And by professional theater, we mean mostly state theaters, and everybody who works there, they have a diploma of State University of Acting and so on and so forth. And it's basically impossible to get there if you don't have this official state diploma of acting or directing and so on. And there is amateur theater open for everyone. And there is a big distinction because they say, and it is true, that there is a big difference in quality. Usually professional theater is much better in quality than the amateur theater. Do you guys even have it in US? How does it work? I heard a lot about community theaters. Do you have this distinction?
Yeah, we do have a distinction. Yes. We have a union that is called the Actors Equity Association, or AEA, that differentiates a professional from a non-professional. And there's a few ways to join the union, which is somewhat of a conundrum. It's difficult for actors and stage managers and directors to move up through the ranks. But there's a lot of hybrid going on. So you can have a non-union, non-professional theater that's just as good or better than some union shows that I've seen, depending on how the director and the production is, and the artistic ability of people, and the concentration and the ensemble is for the piece of art itself. So it doesn't necessarily mean that union shows are going to be better than, but you will get paid if you are a union actor. So usually union actors, you can rely on a little bit more for understanding, I guess, the theater rules, how it's really run. There's different tiers of community theater. So you really look at a theater's mission statement, or maybe their track record. And because of budgetary reasons, not everybody can do union jobs. And when I say that, like, I've produced theater where I have 3 union contracts. So I get 3 equity performers, but then I have 17 non-union performers.
Okay, I see.
Okay. And that's what I'm talking about, the hybrid, because if I don't have $150,000 to put on Midsummer Night's Dream, for instance, then we're going with some community people that, are the staples. And so there's really big houses. And that's what I was saying to you, Alex, that we in Los Angeles just had a huge hit of 2 really big houses closing for the season that pumped a lot of, union people to work. So that's going, it's gone at this point. And we're seeing that across the board, is that theaters are closing. So I think it's going to be more of these regional, small town, or even large town places that have what Sarah was talking about, like, we are going to serve it for the art, and there's going to be hybrid, and people might jump union status. Like I'm jumping union status for a play I'm doing as an actor in a couple of months because they don't have the money to pay me.
Oh, I see.
So I could potentially be kicked out of my union for doing that, but nobody's going to come see it because it's too far. Nobody in the union is going to come see it to police me. Does that make sense? And then I'll be quiet. Yeah,
it makes total sense.
I would also add, as a as an actor, the theater degrees are very expensive. American universities are very expensive. So to train on that level, you really have to be able to either get in for scholarships or be able to take on that financial responsibility. And then I also found that when you get into the theater schools, at least when I was there, there's not as much training on the business side of it, how you actually make money as an actor and become a professional. It's really on the training side, which is so important. I think theater programs have probably changed a lot since I've been in school, but that was definitely something. And then when you get to a major market like Los Angeles or New York is a little different than Los Angeles, but in Los Angeles, it was really interesting to me that the theater degrees held a lot of weight, but so also did the well-known programs within that city. So it was a mixture of trainings that really mattered and connections that you were making. So I guess a short answer would say that it's complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely concur with everything they're saying. We were talking about closing theaters in our little group just earlier. This really does come back to that mission issue. You know, there's always a debate in America about, oh, well, are you professional, right? And then there's a debate, well, what's professional? Is it a way of being, or is it about your contract?
Yeah.
And I think in part because I did accidentally start out with these international artists coming from other places, that I was always raised to, you know, either it matters to you that you pursue mastery in your craft, or that's not why you're there. And I'm not here to judge why other people are in the room, but just for me personally, professionalism is something that a commercial market tries to put on the art to understand it. And artists try to interface with that debate as a way to try to also get respect for advancing themselves in a world that isn't all about artists and trying to be understood by non-artist people. So we have this very uncomfortable kind of like, it's not a natural relationship between the art and the commercial world. And it's like a forced marriage in a lot of cases. And our economy, America's economy, is suddenly realizing things that the arts economy is known, which is that people are the point. And so now the commercial business world is freaking out because they have to treat their employees like human beings now, and they don't know what to do. And so as the commercial world is trying to learn how to deal with humanity wanting more from their workplace, it's causing, and the arts world has got people who want more money for their art because everyone's feeling like they're starving to death or overworked. And so we're just in this situation where I feel like we're in this thing where the teeter-totter is going up and down, and human beings are trying not to fall off. And so, but I feel like the ecosystem has blown apart. The economic ecosystem for arts has blown apart in America. So I think it remains to be seen how it reshapes itself, because right now a lot of companies are failing, but they're not all financial reasons. A lot of them have to do with all the systemic oppressions that have been baked into our cake that we're trying to remove from our systems, all the white supremacy that's gone into our arts, all of that stuff. So we're just in a lot of flux. So I think the good news is, I hope it puts the end to some of the debate between this issue of professional theater versus non-professional, serious work versus amateur work, because I don't know anyone who isn't serious about their work when they're in the rooms. That's sort of my take on it.
Thank you. Kelly, you wanted to.
Well, yeah, I think that right, the whole amateur versus professional conversation, I think in many ways, as everybody has said, is due in large part to the fact that it's labeled either equity, or non-equity. Are you in the union or are you not? Are you in a production that is paying you, a living wage, or are you doing this for the love of it? And because we are a community theater. We are an amateur theater in Tulsa, Oklahoma. However, we oftentimes do well enough that we can pay our artists small stipends for their commitment to what it is that we do. So it's not just the pay, I guess. We can't pay them a living wage, but we can give them something to say, thank you for your for taking time away from your partner, your children, from your job, or whatever, in order to make this production happen. I put in the chat that there are theater companies out there, community theater companies that do Broadway level productions. I popped in Hale Center Theater Company in Utah, because they are a company that has done something like the musical Titanic, and on their stage they had the hydraulics stage separating to create their Titanic boat sinking, and they did 3 levels to show you the different classes on the ship. They've done the Mermaid, where the Little Mermaid, where during their production, at the beginning of it, the Little Mermaid's feet did not touch the ground until she got her legs. And it was an incredibly beautifully lit, costumed production that's crazy. And I asked the artistic director, I said, do you have a professional company in town? Is that why you guys are doing so well? He said, we do, but we do better than they do. We've got stronger talent and we pay better. And so, I think that it just depends on where you are and who are the leaders of that company, and what kind of commitment have they made in order to tell great stories and do great work. Because, and they are paid professionals that are their artistic director, and they've got paid, lighting designers and costumers and all of that. So, I mean, they've got a lot of money. They've somehow managed to build this company. I think it's only like 30, 40 years old or something like that, but it is a force to be reckoned with. But as we meet companies that have $1 million budgets in the community theater world, you can do pretty well in amateur theater in the United States. It does not have to be a starving experience. And it also doesn't have to be the, step above a high school, cafeteria production is what a lot of people think of community theater or amateur theater. Especially if they know nothing about the theater. So the process is really just kind of getting your story out there, making sure that you're making a name for yourself and staying true to your mission and your vision. And I think that, you can do pretty well. So we're working on that.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we have one more question left, right, Alex? Or
It's your questions. We just put it together.
I have to say goodbye.
oh.
Yeah. It's really nice meeting everybody.
Thank you.
right.
Nice meeting you, Susan. Nice having you here. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I guess we can do the last one real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, like for 5 minutes, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about, American side of acting. Yeah, because we discussed the playwrights, the theater in general, and acting. So is there such a thing as American way of acting? And if yes, what techniques do you use in your work? How do you implement these techniques in your work as a director or an actor, actress, and something like that? Yeah, and I don't think that we will split for this one. Let's just discuss it here together.
Yeah. I can throw it off as some experience that we did with ProEnglish Theatre, because as you guys know, we run a set of stage reading, and in this stage reading, we invite international directors who work with Ukrainian actors over Zoom, but they do produce the final result in a black box. So they perform live, they rehearse live, just the director directs them via Zoom. So anyways, once I had an experience with an American director who worked with an American actor over here in Kiev. So they were connected. I'm not going to tell you the names, but still, the commentary I got from this director was, I'm like, how was the work and so on? And he says, well, this guy is an American actor, so he acts only here. And he means the gestures, and the voice. And he says it's impossible to get him to move. And I was very surprised to hear that. And he said, this guy, the director, that American acting is mostly about voice, changing voice, you know, getting into impressions and so on. Could you comment on that? I was very surprised. I never thought this way.
I'll jump in really, really quickly. We are in a process of teaching a camp right now. And it's young actors from 7 to 14 years old. And one of the very first that we did was talked about what their tools are and what actors' tools are. And we say that it's your body, it's your face, it's your hands, it's your voice, it's everything, right? We never say that it's just your voice. And so we really work with them, but it's style too, right? I mean, we talked about acting from the inside out versus the outside in, right? Really beginning to feel, internalize, connect with whatever that emotion or experience is, and allow that to take over your body versus to tell your body, I am going to now cry, or I am going to now smile, right? You need to, I think that you need to feel it in order for it to look believable. And so, we've been working really intentionally with these young people for what we believe is going to help them to use all of the different tools for an actor. And what we're really excited about is that we have a company coming from the UK called Scramble Egg Theatre Company in September. And they're going to do a production for us that has no words. So from start to finish, it is an hour-long production where they're going to do a spoof on spy movies of the 60s and 70s. So it's going to be like a 007 meets Mr. Bean kind of thing, right? So, or, the Pink Panther. And so, but the entire production, what they do with this is absolutely stunning, because the acting is all in their bodies, and it's in their movement, and you feel like you've heard people talk when nobody said a word. But so they're going to come do that production, and then they're going to teach it for us too, because I get tired of hearing people say, well, I've only got 2 lines in this play, so I'm not important. Right. And I'm like, if you count your lines one more time, I promise you, right? And so for us, it was really important to bring in these actors who will do a show. And there is no question that the performance is going to knock the audience off of their feet. But it'll be the first time, I think, that a lot of our actors will have an opportunity to realize that so much of your acting can be done in the silence. And if you can't capture people when you're not saying a word, then I don't really care when you open your mouth. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, totally. Thank you very much.
My experience in training environments in America is that when you go to workshops and symposiums and stuff, people are there to share what they learn, and that comes from everywhere. So I guess part of it just depends on who you might have had the fortune to train with, or your own experiences. So that, there's a lot of we're heavily influenced by the film industry. That's really, I think, why we get this idea of actors being very intellectual first, sometimes before they think physically. Whereas in my time living in Europe and working with international artists, there's so much more focus on the body as a support mechanism for everything else. And being able to get as much flexibility out of your body so you can be as expressive as you want to be or hope to be. And so I think sometimes some people come to it head, and then they go to a training and go, oh, wait, my body. And some people come from dance and realize writing, and then they become an actor because they go, oh, wait, I have ideas and words. And it's in the work, their career, where the two start to come together. So I suppose it's probably the case that in the earlier part, in the late 20th century, when I was first coming up, we saw a lot more influence of film and the psychological, the misuse of the term method acting, whatever, a psychological realism. And that has, at least over the course of the last 30 years that I've been doing this out of school, is that has finally opened up. There's a lot more opening up and people coming from different parts of the country having studied this kind of training, or and so I feel like everything else in America is a fusion, and you can't really say there's a pure way of approaching anything because it's as unique as the people who walk in the room. And I also, I guess I would say that now that there's a lot more movement toward things like intimacy coordination and dealing with that, it has changed the way people think about their approach to rehearsal at all. And it's made them more mindful of what how their bodies communicate with each other just as colleagues. And I feel like that just continues to influence how they approach the performance. But that's just my thought on that.
Mhm.
I would also just add to everything that I think that perhaps with the influence of film, and then also some of the great theories that we study, like Meisner, it does come from cerebral perspective. But for me, I found that when I incorporated my body and started to do body movements in my solo work and really inhabiting the characters, that was opened up my growth as an actor and as a human being, like leaps and bounds, to the point that, and my shows are about mental health, and to the point that I have mental health professionals wanting to incorporate my work in theater to discuss somatic experiencing and trauma recovering using the body. So I think that So I think with theatrical training and also, our theater pieces, we also can transcend different industries and really show so many ways that our stories can be used.
Yeah. And by the way, Diane, Annabelle saw your performance in Iceland, and she told me that was one of the best acting-wise performances she's ever seen. She loved the acting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
connecting with Annabelle and seeing the Book of Sirens and just having our two worlds meet was really the highlight of my Fringe. And I do have to say, last year when I performed my other show, Shattered, it was really fascinating because as an artist, part of what I do is because of the ways I can connect with people and their humanity and the talkbacks after. And last year, someone came up to me and said one sentence, and this was in the summer, and she said, "I am from Ukraine." And my show's all about trauma. It connected with her in a different way, and we didn't have to say anything else. We just could sit there in humanity and connect over the human experience. And I think that that's what is really important. And that was this year and then last year. So I'm very excited to be part of this group.
Thank you.
And I send you all the best.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here.
And to round up, I also wanted to tell you a little bit about what's coming next with the West Association Theatre Club wise. So we decided that we want to make these meetings more often, but because, me and Alex can't do these more often, come up with the ideas, we decided to, how do you say it,
Well, basically to give the voice to anybody who had a topic to discuss. And we got a person from the West who actually has this thing burning on his mind, John Fardon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the 18th of July, John is going to hold a discussion in similar format to this about translations and translating plays and the importance of it for intercultural exchange and understanding each other better. So, and on the 1st of August, we will have a meeting about the festivals, fringes, and different formats of festivals and how we organize them and how we participate in them and so on.
Oh, cool. Jerry can talk about this very first festival in Nigeria that he organizes, this big one. And we can talk about Ukraine Fringe for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And all of them. Cool. That's a great one.
Yes. And if any of you if any of you have something on your mind that you would like to talk about and hear your hear other people talking about it, discussing it, get in touch with me, and we can give you the space to talk. Always,
Right.
because that's West is for, yeah.
I have a closing suggestion too. You guys, we finished up today's talking about the acting styles. If you got any books on acting that you used in your career that helped you or help you teach your actors or anything, send them up in the chat. You don't have to do it now, but send them up in the West chat. I'll definitely send a couple of what I had and still use with my students and with my actors. Any materials that we can exchange, that's a great thing, I guess, especially on American style of acting, but on any style of acting would be useful. Something that you really used, that would be cool.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's do a final selfie.
Yay. Okay, acting
Yes.
wise, I'll have a hat.
Yeah, because you, Alex, love hats.
I have plenty. That's ProEnglish Theatre.
Yay! Thank you.
Veronica, do you think you could save the chat itself because it has a lot of names?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes,
And,
that's I did
save it
it.
up and send it later.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention real quick that tonight is the London opening for the